The review embargo just lifted for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and so of course, you know I had to enlist the world's #1 Sonic fan, GamesCage, to talk all about the newest movie in the trilogy. Is it worth your time? Let's find out.
Starting off, what did you think? Like, what is your, bear?
Yeah. I personally went back and rewatched not Sonic 2 but Sonic 1 before seeing Sonic 3.
Okay.
I feel like it's a better movie than Sonic 1.
It is, by far.
But I like Sonic 1.
Yes.
I feel like it was a good way to sort of like start the franchise out. I think like it was just the right amount of like kids humor, but then also like adding to the lore of Sonic overall.
Yeah.
So I liked the first one. I did not particularly remember really enjoying the second one.
Okay.
And I haven't gone back to rewatch it, but I feel very confidently that I could say at the bare minimum, this is the best of the Sonic the Hedgehog trilogy.
Well, because I rewatched them recently.
Right.
The way I described it is movie 1 is a fun buddy cop movie that Sonic is in.
Yes, I agree.
And that's what makes it so good. Like, it's genuinely, that's like a comedy movie with action in it.
Yes,
And
I
it's
agree.
really funny, it's great. But movie 2 is when we're starting, like, the joke is always that when I came out of movie 2, I just said that was a Sonic movie, right?
But the reason
that's
why I'm sure that you were hype at the end of Sonic 2 was seeing Shadow.
Of course.
I think when you saw Shadow at the end, you couldn't talk about it.
But the difference is in Sonic 2
Yeah.
is when they're actually adapting game plots, right?
Yes.
Like you have the Death Egg,
Yep.
right? You have, even the plot line of Knuckles being like confused and like Eggman messing with him. Like it's actively adapting that stuff. You have Master Emerald, like you're getting into real Sonic stuff. And so I love that movie. And so when it doesn't when movie 2 had like the side stuff, like the wedding stuff and everything, it felt like it was countering it.
Yeah.
So that's why like movie 1 is really great in its own way and movie 2 is great in its own way, but it has flaws. I felt like movie 3 was just plot. It's go from beginning to the end. Like genuinely, I think it took the best of both. Whereas we're still a comedy, action, funny movie, right? But it is like messing. Has the action, it has the comedy, and it never. Everything the characters are doing relate to the main plot.
Yes. What?
Mostly.
I think the one thing I will say, because I think both of us are pretty unanimously positive about them. I think honestly, to be fair, most people who came out of the premiere were also very positive about it. But I feel like the one thing that I could have used less of in the movie is actually the stuff with Eggman and Gerald.
Right.
Because I feel like Jim Carrey does a great job in the movie. Like,
he's having fun.
He is having so much fun. This is, if you are a fan of your classic 90s Jim Carrey movies like The Mask, Ace Ventura, Cable Guy, like you're gonna get something good out of this one. And again, like you said, he's clearly having a good time. But I do feel like those were the biggest lulls in the film, were when they stopped to kind of focus on those two characters. Because without getting into stuff that happens late in the film, obviously, because again, we don't want to spoil anything, there is a sequence about midway through that was the first time when I watched the press screener of this that I was like, all right, we can move it on a little. And I know exactly you know what I'm talking about.
It's funny because all of the movies have a segment
like that.
like a which, to be honest, it's not a spoiler because it's in the music video.
Oh, okay. So people knew about this. The dance sequence, right?
That's in the music video for "Run It, Roll It Up" or the Jelly Roll song. So each movie has had one of those dance segments. I agree. Like some of the Eggman Gerald stuff sometimes is a little too much. Yeah. Right. But there's still. I would rather it be the Eggmen.
Then some other random character that's like put in.
Again, like
110%
like Rachel,
agree.
like the whole stuff in the second movie, Rachel's wedding was like, okay, this is clearly made for like mom and dad who's taking the kid to the movie and needs something to entertain them. Whereas like with the Jim Carrey stuff, it's like people are invested in Eggman, know he's silly, right? But like sometimes it can be too much. I agree with that. That was like my one flaw.
That's honest, and that honestly is like my one flaw. Yeah. That's the only thing I could think of. I feel like the rest of the movie, so long as you go in knowing that these are kids' movies, right? So long as you go in like knowing there is going to be kids' humor, there are some fart jokes or whatever, but for the most part, I think it actually works.
I mean, we haven't even mentioned Shadow yet.
Bro, okay. Go ahead and start. Oh my God. Because like we can fanboy over Shadow.
I think Shadow, start to finish perfect.
Perfect.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
They nailed this character.
Yes.
Even in the few moments he has a funny moment, it's hysterical.
It's so good, right? There's a certain line, right? There's a certain line when they get to the London portion of this movie that literally we all mentioned in the theater. We were like, okay, we're going to be quoting this for weeks. Yeah, it is so good. And Keanu Reeves, I think, does an excellent job as Shadow too. I think he first off, he's a great actor, right? Everybody loves Keanu Reeves, like much beloved, but I feel like he captures this 50-year-old hedgehog who's seen some stuff.
Yeah.
So well.
Yeah.
Even like in his line delivery, like right in the very beginning of the movie when he sees Sonic and the team for the first time, and he goes like, wait, who are you?
Who are you?
Why do you look like me? You know,
they try.
They really do a great job
They're
with
on
that.
the nose. But I will say, right, as a like Sonic Adventure 2 head, recently I played that game a bunch, right? Like this movie is Sonic Adventure 2 in the movie universe. Like, it's not one-to-one to the game, but it is very much that storyline.
I'm glad you brought that up, too, because I have seen people go into this sort of speculating as to what type of film the movie will be, and I think it is really important to go in with the expectations that, like you said, this is an adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're expecting story beats from other games that are necessarily going to be in here, I don't think you really get that.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think the way that they translated and condensed Sonic 2, especially when they don't have all the characters involved and stuff, I think the way that they condensed it was actually really well done.
I think so too, because like in Sonic Adventure 2, you have a lot more characters. Right? You have Rouge, you have Amy, you have who else do you have? You have
Eggman's robot. You got the ghost dude from Knuckles' story.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, you have a lot more stuff, but I think they wanted to focus, and the director said this, like he wanted this movie to focus on Shadow.
Yes.
And so, and I agree too. The difference is in a game, you have like 6 to 8 hours to invest in different characters. In a movie, you got a 2-hour runtime.
Right.
And so introducing like all the characters to make Adventure 2 makes sense. Wouldn't make sense.
I agree.
And so I think them making it so, all right, it's just Shadow and the gang. And even the humans, like,
I was going to say, are way better. Way better. That was actually one of my big things coming out of the press screener was like, I feel like Tom was way more interesting in this.
Well,
like I was always kind of like, all right, let's move on with the humans.
The thing is, in movie 2 even, I love Tom and Maddie. Yeah. But again, like, they get silent for the Rachel plot.
Yeah.
Right? And so here having the focus again on Tom and Maddie as their parents is so much better. And having their parents involved, basically. It's so charming. I love them way more, and again, because they contributed to the main story.
And I also feel, because we have to mention this, if we're talking about human characters, they did Maria so well.
Incredible.
So, so well done. Aru is also here listening.
I'm here. Hi. I really liked Maria. I think Maria was perfectly casted. Maria was like, I think, my favorite human character. Yeah.
And I feel like Maria in general, too, the way that not only they adapted her story, also changed a few things, I think it didn't bother me. You know what I mean? Like, it fleshed it out and actually actively made it better. Like, even without, again, spoiling things, the way that they throw Easter eggs in there for Sonic 2 during the stuff with Maria and with Shadow and their explanation, and also like even the way that they give kind of a lore explanation. This is a minor spoiler. A lore explanation for Shadow's shoes. I was like, even when I saw the press screening, I'm like, wait, this explains so much. I had no idea. Which I love.
This entire year has done such a good job of that, because it used to be that, like, you know, it used to be easy for people to make fun of Maria getting shot. Because no one really cared about her. Like, that was the one thing, is that all we really knew is, you know, the running in the hallway, she gets shot, and Shadow cared for her. Right? Whereas this year, whether it be, you know, Dark Beginnings, like the animated thing, or the game, or the movie, like, we get so much more of this relationship fleshed out, which makes Shadow's hurt so much more understandable. Like, you get it.
Oh yeah, when you get to that portion where like the plan is actually coming to fruition, and he's like, you know, he says that line that you've heard in the trailers where it's like, there's not going to be anything left, you know, to burn down, and even Agent Stone says back to him, he's like, man, that's dark even for you. I think that does perfectly encapsulate kind of like how the Shadow of this movie was translated, especially again from the games. I love Shadow, right? I've always liked that he was a darker character, but I didn't expect them to go as dark as they did in this movie, considering how the first two were. And especially, again, this is a kid's franchise. Like, of course, you're not going to get super crazy violent things. But I think they toe the edge a little bit in this one.
The action in this movie
is really good.
Is the most Sonic it's ever been.
I totally agree.
Like,
yes.
From the set piece, you guys have seen the trailer with like motorcycle and Sonic running, like incredible.
Yes.
Right from even like the London scene to the end game stuff. Oh my.
Dude, the final third again. Spoiler-free review. The final third of this movie is absolute peak.
It's
the way that it's handled is so good.
It
gets
like right into it.
It
like
does.
it's shot. Like I was like, whoa, we're just doing this right. Oh, I was like, I literally in the theater.
He stood up and started screaming in the middle of the theater. I can say this as somebody who was at the premiere with him. That moment does kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and you're like, we're here now already. Great.
Yeah.
But from that moment until the ending, it is like a non-stop roller coaster ride. And I think that is the thing where if you are somebody who's like too worried that this is going to be too much of a kid's movie and they aren't going to hit the beats that you're expecting, like, don't worry. It's going to get there, and then even then some.
I would I would go as far as say like that final segment, probably like, of all the superhero movies and things you've had, like top 5 action segments.
It's so good.
It is the closest we've ever had to Dragon Ball.
Yes.
Like that's the best way to not spoil it without saying like it is the closest thing to a genuine Dragon Ball live action adaptation.
And I've seen people on Twitter saying like, oh, apparently Sonic fans don't like the comparison between like Dragon Ball or Sonic sometimes, or people were saying, is it like a meme or whatever?
No. So it's funny enough. The director, the creator side, like doesn't like comparing them, but it's like, dude.
It's just. I mean, it's literally because even beyond like what you would expect, right?
Yeah.
The initial comparisons visually,
Yeah.
I do feel like tonally, it is very much like a Dragon Ball movie where you have like this really goofy, stupid humor coming out of nowhere that does work a lot of the time. It's not like it's bad kids humor, but it's like you get this stupid, goofy humor, and then all of a sudden you're in this really, really serious scene where like the stake of the world is there, and you're like, okay, wow, we're here now. It's great, but again, it never feels like a different film.
Yeah.
And I think that's the line that Dragon Ball toes very well, and then I think this movie towed well too, is I think if you go from 0 to 60 in any other kind of franchise, it might not necessarily work, but it does work here.
Exactly.
With, again, you have like the history of the characters, knowing what to expect already, but then also like the way even they shot certain sequences, and like, again, the surprise of certain things showing up. Dude, the music in this movie.
Oh my God.
The music in this movie.
So, dude.
Easily the best soundtrack of the film.
Literally, because so many people, right when I left the movie, were messaging Fidel that they fixed the music.
Yes.
That was people's biggest criticisms, that the movies don't, like, this movie, guys, has leitmotifs. It has, like, themes. Like, if you care about this stuff, this stuff is there. Like, there are still, the moments with, like, the licensed music of, like, regular music.
But it's way less prominent, I feel like, in this one than it was in the other two.
And, like, when it's a theme you think should be there, it's there.
It's
like
there.
That's the thing to keep in mind.
Like this is the first 5 minutes of the movie, but there's a certain theme that everybody really loves that in the first 5 minutes of this movie almost has like a banjo cover.
Yes,
it's like this, and it's this acoustic, neat cover, and everybody in our entire theater, both during the press screening and the actual premiere, freaked.
It's awesome.
It's so well done. And again, that's the other good thing about this movie is I feel like because you're now involving Shadow, because you're involving all these other characters, because Sonic Adventure 2 is such a beloved game, I think there is a world in which they could have very easily put too many Easter eggs in. Or like bombarded you with like, hey, you remember this thing? Let's give you the lore about this. It all feels natural in this movie. The way that things fall into place, nothing is like spent too much time on. I think, again, even the things that maybe some people are expecting to see in the movie, the way they're implemented, I think, are like incredibly well done.
I will say for everybody,
the
line, there's one of the lines that you want, it's in there.
There's also
there's a lot of lines.
I was gonna say there's another line that's shocked me. With how they changed it. Because they sort of turned the line into like a comedic moment towards the ending, and I was like, I don't know how people are gonna love this. That's the thing. When I came out of the press screening, and I obviously didn't want to tell them anything, I basically texted you and was like, there is a line towards the end that I do think Sonic fans in particular could potentially be upset about, but I feel like it's thrown in between all of the other stuff where we're losing our minds in Act 3, where it's like, oh, okay, whatever, it's fine, like it doesn't even matter. Right. You know what I'm talking about. Okay.
And also, I will say, like, Knuckles and Tails so lovable.
Great.
Like, obviously they are not the focal, but when they're there, it shines. You know, like Knuckles even more like loud and proud of himself, which is really cool.
And more trusting in them in this movie too, which I also think is really cool. Also, for those of you that watch the Knuckles TV show, there is something there for you. So
listen, bear through it. It is worth it, even for just a second.
I don't. Okay, maybe not. Let's not go that far, right? It's not that big.
I know.
But it is something that, like, if you've watched the show already, we're not saying go run out and watch the Knuckles show, but if you've watched it and you're hoping that there's some reason for you to have watched that show, there is something in there for you. Yeah. So I did love that. Yeah, Tails, I also think they do a great job with. I love that line towards the beginning of the movie where him and Agent Stone are walking, and he's like, well, aren't you adorable?
Yeah, he's just like, listen, I gotta just be honest with you.
Also, Agent Stone in this movie is great.
Yep,
His arc, I think, is really good.
3 for 3 movies, man, of Agent Stone just being one of the best characters.
Really, really. The technology, I also think, is really good. The way that they use some of the egg drones and, like, the giant mechanical, like, walking island that they're on, all that stuff was great. Again, there's so much in Sonic Adventure 2 that I understand they had to condense, right? And not everything can be there. But I think the thing that gets us to Act 3, right? I think is actually as well done as it could have possibly been.
I think it was super well done. And it's a good way to make Sonic and Shadow understand each other.
Yes, I agree. That moment at the end of Act 2. Yeah. Where in the theater, I remember seeing your reaction. This man was just like standing up going,
there's no way.
Well, there's no way they actually did this. But that works so well.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people, there's always, especially like my side of Twitter, like there's always a debate about Movie Sonic, right? How Movie Sonic, you know, is a bit more goofier, makes a lot more of the pop culture reference and stuff. And he's still like that. Yeah. I do think the references weren't as bad as I thought they'd be. Like
there are a lot of them though.
There are a lot of them. Yeah. But he spreads them out, and they're fun. They
are funny. I agree.
You know. But I do think when Movie Sonic locks in, he locks in. That's the thing. Is
Ben Schwartz
locks.
Well done.
Exactly.
Well done.
Like that was my biggest thing. Is like, okay, he's goofy because he knows sometimes he can be, but when he needs to be, you're like, okay, like Sonic is here.
And even, again, on the topic of the pop culture thing, because that is something that stood out to me with Sonic Movie 2 that I, like, did not like. But it's funny, because I think if I go back, like, I watched your re-review thing where you counted down the number of times they made pop culture references. I bet you this one, beat for beat, probably has more of them.
Maybe.
But they aren't... They never annoyed me.
Yeah, no, they're great.
Every single one, even, like, one of the things that Eggman is watching... in the movie
awesome.
Is like a funny, actual, genuinely funny beat that's a through line throughout the course of the rest of the movie.
Because of how Shadow reacts to it.
Yeah, 100%. How Shadow reacts to it's like one of the best lines of the whole film. Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like, again, the pop culture stuff at least makes a little more sense, and it doesn't feel as dated. I feel like the pop culture references, like, obviously you guys have already seen in the trailer, the Detective Pikachu call out. Like, I think stuff like that.
That's funny.
It landed. It never,
because, like, for me, like, I always remembered that, like, and I've said this when I rewatched movie 1 especially, I'm like, Sonic grew up on this planet, right? Like 10 years alone before he talked to any human, just like looking at them, looking through TVs, right? And you know, obviously in movie 1, him watching Keanu on the TV,
right.
It's like he grew up with this culture, so it makes sense that he leans into that kind of stuff.
Because it's all he knows.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, but like I said, he makes them, but for the most part, the movie is much funnier,
absolutely,
tighter, and it's. The runtime is actually shorter than movie 2, but that's a good thing.
Is it really?
It is.
How long is it?
So I think movie 2 is 2 hours. Okay. This one's 150-ish, which I think is which isn't that
much.
It's
perfect. Yeah, I feel like again, I would trim maybe 1 or 2 things towards the middle,
and that's
but for the most part, I feel like you never feel the runtime.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever. It's again, once you get to that thing at the beginning of Act 3, it is like a nonstop roller coaster, and it really does shock you because by that point you're having a good time with the movie. And you're like, whoa, okay, I guess we're here now. And it's probably a relatively sizable portion of the film. Act 3 is at least, I'd have to say, like 25 or 30 minutes.
And I think my only other flaw would be Kristen Ritter's character.
Yes, I agree.
So the movie like weirdly like alludes to her having like a bigger role, like something's wrong. And it kind of just
throws her
out.
I agree.
That was my one other flaw. I was just like,
we'll talk about it because we're gonna do a whole spoiler video on Fidel's channel that we'll talk about a little bit later, and about like expectations maybe for that character. I definitely, especially considering where that character's main action within this movie takes place, there was a very clear thing in Sonic Adventure 2 that this portion is referencing. And that character's a very clear stand-in for somebody. So when you get that moment, it is very much like, oh, okay, you're just not gonna show up for the rest of the film now. Like, this is bizarre.
Cool, yeah.
And it does feel like almost like a missed opportunity, like they were going to do something with that character and they just changed it.
I don't know. I don't think it's the last of her. I think maybe.
But I also kind of don't care.
I don't care. Exactly.
I'm like, that's you're just.
I almost, I would have rathered. Kid Cudi from Knuckles
show up in the movie.
That would have been way better.
Have a bowling tournament.
Because he's unironically like the funniest part of that show. He's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was it. But besides that, man, like
it's great.
It's just when you leave a thing.
Yeah.
And like you're like, that was a great movie versus like I can tell everyone that worked on that loved that thing.
Oh,
it's like, 110%. This is one of those movies.
Yeah.
Literally, I want to tell you guys, little insider, Tyson, that's right after the movie ended, is like, Fidel, like, all that Sonic stuff is me. You better be thankful. And I was like, I am, bro.
I will ask then, because I think this is kind of an important thing for people who are watching this that aren't necessarily Sonic fans, that are more like general moviegoers.
Yeah.
Do you think that this movie will change anybody's mind who maybe has seen that Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 are out, but never were like running to the theater to go see it? Do you think this is the movie that will get people? Really?
I think that last segment is like that social media viral thing. Like that's, like a lot of Marvel movies, people are just, at this point, we're at a point with movies where after a week, people are just posting like footages of the theaters everywhere.
Yeah. Please don't spoil this, because again, the final bit of this movie is like,
please don't.
When people see it for themselves,
yeah.
you're gonna get those theater live reactions of people popping off.
I think this movie has like that level of grandiose scale is something that's gonna make people like, oh my god, like I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in on this. And it's like it's very evident without spoilers, like we're in this. It's not over. Like it's like we are in a universe right now.
Oh yeah, and I mean, but they've been building to that for
course.
such a long time. I feel like at this point, and it's obviously such a lucrative franchise. Yeah. Currently, it's tracking box office wise to do very well.
Better than Mufasa.
Like better than Mufasa, which is shocking that we're living in a world in which a Sonic movie is going to be better than a Lion King movie. I can't believe it. But it's great, and I think it's totally deserved. And yeah, I think we pretty much touch on everything. We touch on the music. We touch on whether or not, if you're a Sonic fan who maybe avoided the other movies, this will probably be the one to bring you in. Again, though, do you think like a general audience that has no familiarity with Sonic
could just watch
this? Because I think they could.
I think they could.
I watched it and I liked it.
And you never watched the other two.
I watched the second one on the plane, but I never saw the first one. And then the second one, it was very casual. Like, of course. I was paying attention, half paying attention. I liked the second one because of Knuckles, though.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the third one, I was expecting more of the same. Like, I went into it thinking it's like a kid's movie.
Sure.
And there were some things in there where, like, they do remind you, like, this is for kids.
Yeah.
But there was other stuff in there where it's like, oh, like, anybody from any age could watch this and enjoy it very much. Yeah. I liked it, which is really
which is very surprising. Yeah, right.
If she liked, that means it's like 20 out of 10.
There were some things where I, like, turned to Fidel and I was like, I don't like this bit.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. The majority of it, I would say, like, 95% of the movie, I really liked.
And I will say, pacing-wise, too. Again, we mentioned this earlier, but I do think it's worth noting that, like, for me, I felt that this was the quickest of any of the three.
Yes.
I never felt myself bored, other than, like I said, that one little thing in the middle, but it wasn't even bored, it was more like, and it's in and out. That thing in the middle is like you're in and out of it. That one sequence. Exactly. And the rest of that sequence, I actually really enjoy. And in fact, I think the humor in that sequence overall is actually really very good. Really good. In the lead up to like those characters' plans, and then like leading out of it as well, I thought it was excellent. So yeah, I do absolutely think people are gonna love this movie once it eventually comes out. It comes out this Friday. Super excited to see what people's reactions are going to be. We are obviously going to film a full spoiler review for this that's going to be over on his channel. I'm going to go put a link in the description. Thank you, of course, for joining me.
Of course.
Any last minute thoughts regarding Sonic the Hedgehog movie 3?
I'm still in shock. I need to go watch it like four more times. I have it scheduled for Thursday to watch it. Friday I'm watching it. I'll probably find a way to squeeze in another showtime. It's unbelievable. I can't believe this exists. It is awesome. It is, as somebody who grew up loving Sonic Adventure 2, it is cool to actually see this realized in a film and have it be done well. Yep.
Is the coolest thing. So yeah, Shadow fans, you are in for a treat. I think that is the one group of people that is going to be absolutely happiest after seeing this movie.
The year of Shadow.
This truly was. Shadow Generations being such a good game. Shadow being in the movie as great as he is. Oh my, that fight in the beginning of the movie with Shadow I thought was fantastic too.
Everything.
Peak, man. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Nakama! And All hail Shadow.